How do you reset boundaries when an avoidance suddenly comes back? That's the real question this title asks, and it's a question so many people secretly struggle with. Because let's be honest, do you ever feel completely confused when your avoidant or ex-partner reappears out of nowhere? One moment they vanished without explanation, and the next, they show up like the silence never happened, sending a soft hey, reacting to your story, or starting a light conversation that throws your emotions off balance. And you're left wondering, what do I do now? What boundary should I hold? What should I avoid? What does this even mean? This confusion is exactly where avoidants gain emotional control, not intentionally, but because their return triggers old patterns inside you. And here's the truth most people don't realize, avoidants do come back, but not because they suddenly became emotionally strong or ready for deep connection. They come back because distance feels safe, but losing someone who grounded them feels terrifying. That fear quietly pulls them back into your orbit, even if they don't say it out loud. But this is also where the biggest mistake happens. Most people let the avoidance slide right back into their life, with the same access, the same comfort, the same emotional closeness, no boundaries, no clarity, no protection. And that's how the cycle repeats: connection, overwhelm, withdrawal, confusion, pain. But this time is different. This time you're not entering the cycle, you're resetting it. Because resetting boundaries isn't about punishing them or rejecting them. It's about breaking the old pattern without breaking yourself. It's about keeping your emotional space safe, your energy grounded, and your dignity intact, even if the avoidant hasn't mastered their emotions yet. In this video you're going to learn the 5 essential boundaries that high-value people naturally set when an avoidant comes back. Boundaries that don't push them away, but protect your self-respect, restore balance, and create healthier connection. By the end you'll know how to shift the dynamic in your favor, how to stop abandoning yourself for someone else's comfort, and how to rebuild a connection that doesn't drain you. Let's begin. The first boundary is simple but incredibly powerful: slow everything down. When an avoidant suddenly returns to your life, they are immediately sizing up how you respond. Most people make one of two mistakes. They either rush emotionally toward them, pouring out feelings and expectations as if nothing changed, or they react with frustration, anger, or attempts to make them account for their absence. Both extremes feel unsafe to an avoidant. Avoidants are wired to pull away from intensity, even positive intensity. When emotions escalate too quickly or expectations rise faster than they can handle, their instinct is to retreat. This is why the first and most important boundary you can set is slowing down the emotional pace. It's a way to protect yourself while also communicating that you are in control of your own energy. Slowing down doesn't mean ignoring them or shutting down entirely. It means you consciously avoid jumping into deep conversations, don't immediately bring up past hurts, and refrain from assuming that their return is a full reunion. You also resist the urge to make the connection heavier or more intimate than it naturally is at that moment. Essentially, you meet them where they are, but you do so with more self-control than you might have before. Your responses should be calm, measured, and grounded. Keep interactions light without being distant, stable without being cold. This creates a rhythm that feels safe to both of you. When an avoidant senses safety, they are more likely to engage rather than retreat. By letting the emotional tempo rebuild naturally, you give them space to approach without feeling trapped, while also protecting yourself from slipping back into old patterns of over-investing or over-explaining. The reason this works is subtle but powerful. For an avoidant, a slower pace signals that the relationship is safe, not threatening. Safety encourages presence, presence encourages consistency, and consistency ultimately builds connection. You are not only protecting your heart but also teaching them that emotional safety is part of the new dynamic you expect. This approach allows you to reset the tone from the very first interaction. Instead of getting pulled into a cycle of highs and lows, you remain anchored in your own emotional stability. You are establishing a boundary that says, without words, I am here, but I will not compromise my energy or my dignity to accommodate your unpredictability. Slowing down sets the stage for all other boundaries to follow. It gives you control over the pace of reconnection, protects your emotional reserves, and gradually shifts the dynamic from one of reactive chaos to calm intentionality. By keeping things steady, you allow the avoidant to engage safely while you reclaim your power and ensure that the connection, if it continues, is healthier than it ever was before. The second boundary is crucial for anyone reconnecting with an avoidant. Do not make yourself instantly available. One of the reasons avoidants feel comfortable disappearing and then reappearing at their convenience is because they know you will always be there, waiting, ready to respond immediately. They have learned that absence does not create consequences because your attention is predictable and endless. This time, that dynamic changes. You are warm, approachable, and kind, but you are not waiting. You are open to engagement, but you are not desperate for it. You are present in your own life, but you are not constantly on call, ready to bend your schedule or compromise your energy to accommodate their return. This subtle shift sends an unmistakable message: you are a full, whole individual who values your time, your energy, and your emotional stability. Practically, this means resisting the urge to reply instantly to their texts, calls, or messages. It means not rearranging your day to accommodate their timing. It means creating space between silence and full emotional access, rather than allowing them to jump from weeks of absence directly into your attention and care. And it means not rewarding inconsistent effort with unwavering availability. Every time you respond immediately to a sporadic text or make yourself emotionally accessible despite their unpredictability, you reinforce the old pattern they rely on. By slowing your availability, you communicate a powerful and non-verbal message: my life is full. You are welcome in it, but not at the expense of my balance. This signals emotional wholeness, not emotional dependency. Avoidants surprisingly respect this more than most people realize. They are drawn to individuals who are stable and self-sufficient, not those who revolve around their comings and goings. Someone who is always waiting is predictable, but someone who is grounded and selective with their energy naturally commands respect. This boundary does more than protect your emotional space, it forces the avoidant to step up. When they see that you are not perpetually available, they are challenged to act with intention rather than habit. They can no longer assume that absence has no cost, because your attention is no longer guaranteed. If they want to reconnect meaningfully, they must consciously decide to engage rather than relying on old patterns of emotional access. You are no longer enabling their cycle of disappearances and returns. Instead, you are creating a structure where their actions matter, where effort is required, and where consistency is noticed and rewarded. Setting this boundary is an act of self-respect, emotional intelligence, and empowerment. It preserves your energy, reinforces your value, and Boundary 3 is where emotional maturity intersects with clarity, and it is one of the most powerful ways to reset your relationship with an avoidant. Avoidants naturally dislike confrontation, but they do respond to calm, grounded clarity. When they come back into your life, it is easy to slip into old patterns, reacting emotionally, hoping they'll get it, or letting their inconsistent behavior dictate your energy. Setting this boundary means taking control of the dynamic in a gentle but firm way, showing them exactly how you expect to be treated without anger, blame, or drama. This is the moment to clarify what you will and won't accept in terms of emotional engagement. You outline the rules of communication that feel safe and healthy for you. You define what consistency looks like from your perspective, whether it's regular check-ins, honest responses, or keeping plans without sudden disappearances. You state your preferred emotional tone: calm, respectful, and grounded, instead of letting mood swings or unpredictable intensity set the rhythm. And crucially, you indicate the behaviors you will no longer tolerate: dismissiveness, avoidance, or emotional manipulation. The key here is how you communicate these boundaries. You're not lecturing, you're not attacking or pointing fingers, you're not expecting the avoidant to change overnight or conform to all your demands. Instead, you are providing a clear, secure framework that shows them the structure you need to feel safe and respected. Your words can be simple, short, and matter-of-fact. For example, you might say, "Let's keep things simple and consistent this time," or "I prefer slow but steady communication," or even "I'm not repeating the old pattern. I want something healthier." Each statement communicates firmness without friction, clarity without conflict, and guidance without pressure. Avoidants often respond better to calm articulation than to emotional intensity. They can feel defensive if boundaries are presented with frustration, criticism, or anger. When delivered with measured energy, boundaries become a roadmap rather than a rulebook. You are essentially giving them instructions on how to engage with you, showing them the path to a functional connection without pushing them or controlling their choices. By clarifying what you will and won't accept, you are doing more than protecting your emotional space. You are asserting your value and setting the tone for any future interactions. This boundary prevents old cycles of confusion, inconsistency, and disappointment from repeating. You are no longer reacting to their unpredictable energy, you are guiding the dynamic with intention. Every interaction now has a framework that prioritizes respect, stability, and mutual understanding. This boundary is an act of empowerment. It communicates that your time, energy, and emotions are not negotiable commodities. It sets a standard that they can either meet or respectfully step back from, but it leaves no room for ambiguity. By taking this step, you reclaim your voice, your peace, and your power, all while giving the avoidant a clear path to re-engage, if they are willing to meet you on equal terms. Boundary 4 is one of the most crucial steps to protecting your peace when an avoidant comes back. Do not resume the emotional labor. Emotional labor is a subtle but exhausting pattern, and it's often invisible until you step back and notice the imbalance. It means carrying the weight of the relationship alone, explaining the emotional state for both of you, soothing discomfort that belongs to them while sidelining your own, initiating all vulnerability, and constantly being the emotional leader while they coast through with minimal effort. Over time, this dynamic drains you, even if the avoidant seems affectionate or attentive in small bursts. When you consciously stop doing the emotional labor, a profound shift occurs. The avoidant can no longer rely on your energy to stabilize the connection. They either engage authentically, showing effort to meet your needs, or the interaction remains neutral. This is key. By stepping back from being the fixer or caretaker, you force a new balance to emerge. Avoidants often respond positively when they see that someone is no longer carrying the relationship alone, because it signals that the other person has boundaries, self-respect, and emotional independence, all qualities they subconsciously value but tend to avoid. The difference is subtle but powerful. Instead of rushing to explain every misunderstanding or justify your feelings, you simply set statements that communicate your boundaries. Replace phrases like, "Let's talk about what happened," with "I'm open when you're ready." Instead of reacting to inconsistency with frustration, say, "I need consistency to stay connected." This is not about shutting them out or being cold, it's about reclaiming your role in the dynamic. You are no longer responsible for managing their emotions, you are responsible for managing your own. Avoidants are used to patterns where they can retreat, withdraw, and leave the emotional work to you. By removing yourself from that role, you instantly reset the relationship dynamic. You no longer return to the familiar position of the strong one who absorbs all tension. Instead, you communicate clearly that engagement now requires their conscious effort. This encourages them to show up as equals rather than relying on your labor to carry the interaction. It's important to note that this doesn't mean you're punishing them. You're not emotionally withdrawing out of spite. You're simply maintaining a boundary that preserves your energy. You're protecting your mental health while still remaining available for a connection that is mutually respectful. The avoidant is now faced with two choices: either step up and meet you in this healthier, more balanced dynamic, or accept that the connection stays at a neutral, non-draining level. By refusing to reopen emotional labor, you create a space where the relationship can evolve without you sacrificing your stability. You assert your value, reinforce your independence, and model the kind of connection that is sustainable, safe, and aligned with your needs. In doing so, you protect yourself from repeating old cycles and empower both yourself and the avoidant to engage in a new, healthier way. The final boundary is perhaps the most important of all, keeping self-respect at the center. This is the anchor that supports every other boundary you've set, and it fundamentally changes the way an avoidant interacts with you. When they return, it's tempting to soften your standards, overlook past patterns, or downplay your needs to make the connection easier. But this is exactly what breaks the cycle and leaves you drained. By holding on to your self-respect, you signal that your worth and well-being are non-negotiable. Staying centered doesn't mean shutting them out or acting cold. It means living your life with a sense of stability and purpose that does not revolve around their approval or presence. You maintain your boundaries, voice your needs, and honor your values consistently. You do not shrink to accommodate their comfort, and you do not compromise your emotional health to fix the dynamic. Avoidants notice this balance, even if subtly, and are naturally drawn to people who are self-contained and self-aware. This magnetic pull comes not from chasing them or trying to control the outcome, but from holding space for your own integrity and emotional independence. Being grounded in your self-respect allows you to approach any interaction with clarity and confidence. You make choices from a place of empowerment rather than fear or neediness. If they try to pull old patterns, you recognize it immediately and respond in alignment with your boundaries rather than being pulled into reactive behavior. You no longer tolerate inconsistent behavior as a default. You decide what energy you allow into your life and communicate it calmly and assertively. This transforms the dynamic from one of imbalance to one of mutual respect. Living with self-respect also means that your life continues fully with or without them. You pursue your goals, invest in your passions, nurture your relationships, and remain emotionally stable regardless of their presence. This detachment from outcome is not indifference, it's prioritizing your emotional well-being above anyone else's inconsistencies. You become a person who leads with value, presence, and grounded energy. Avoidants, when faced with this level of self-assuredness, either step up to match it or stay out, and both outcomes are equally acceptable. By keeping self-respect at the center, you communicate boundaries more effectively than any rules or statements could. You are showing that your life is full, your emotional energy is precious, and your dignity cannot be compromised. Every action, every decision, and every moment of restraint reinforces the message that you will not return to old patterns of imbalance. This boundary becomes the ultimate test of their willingness to engage authentically, without relying on manipulation, guilt, or emotional games. Ultimately, self-respect is the invisible boundary that governs all others. It ensures that you maintain control over your emotional space, that you protect your heart, and that you live a life aligned with your values. When an avoidant sees someone holding this standard, they recognize the seriousness and integrity of the connection. They are faced with a choice: rise to meet your energy with genuine effort, or accept the limits you've set. By centering your self-respect, you guarantee that no one, avoidant or otherwise, can compromise your emotional stability, leaving you empowered and free. If an avoidant has come back into your life, don't panic and don't rush into anything. Their return might feel sudden, confusing, or even flattering at first. But it's important to remember that coming back doesn't automatically mean they are ready to fully engage or commit. Often they return because something inside them realized the value, presence, and stability you brought to their life. They felt the loss, and that stirred recognition, but recognition alone is not action. Your responsibility is not to fix them. It's not to chase explanations or clarity. It's not to prove your worth or earn their effort. The power lies in how you show up for yourself. This is where boundaries become your strongest ally. When you protect your space, your emotions, and your time, you elevate yourself above the old cycle of chasing, frustration, and uncertainty. You no longer react impulsively to their presence. Instead, you respond from a place of control, awareness, and dignity. Resetting boundaries doesn't push them away. It reshapes the connection entirely. It ensures that any interaction they have with you is guided by respect and consistency. They came back because they felt a gap, a loss, an absence they couldn't ignore. You set boundaries because you felt your own growth, value, and power. One honors the past, the other protects the present and shapes the future. Remember, this is about reclaiming your narrative. Your life doesn't pause because they return. Your self-respect, clarity, and emotional well-being remain the center of the dynamic. By staying grounded and firm, you ensure that the connection, if it continues, is healthier, balanced, and mutually respectful. If you want deeper practical guidance on handling avoidance, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share the topics you want me to cover next. Your story isn't over, but this time, you are fully in control of how it unfolds.